Welcome back. Prince Harry's esteemed biographer Angela Levin joins me live now to dissect those astonishing High Court revelations, which I spoke about at the top of the show. So, Angela, you obviously are the British journalist who knows Harry best. You've spent a huge amount of time with him, but you're also Camilla's biographer too. What on earth is he doing 10 days before the coronation using a futile court case about something that happened years ago to throw grenades at his father, at his stepmother, at his brother, but also the late Queen, who yet again he portrays as some sort of bumbling fool who has no control over her own courtiers and her own son. I mean, this is so highly offensive, Angela.
Yeah, let's start there. I don't actually believe the Queen said anything. It's very easy to say something about someone who's passed away. She wouldn't have actually given him permission.
Yeah, where's the proof, Harry?
Exactly. And I think he's just making things up. He's desperate, though. He's desperate to get the headlines, take it off King Charles and Queen Camilla, and to actually get there on the newspaper. And he doesn't care. And I think one of the reasons is that the people who still support him, silly fools, and Meghan, only get a snippet of what he's saying. They take that snippet and they don't listen to anymore, they don't want to hear anymore, but he's made a contact with them. And that's why also, just to divert for a second, that Meghan was talking about racism. It's to bring it back before the coronation begins. But the whole thing, I mean, the judge said to him, you know, you're very inconsistent, because he said he wanted to bring the case in 2019, but if he'd have known that he could speak earlier, he'd have brought it in 2012. And the judge said, but you didn't want to do that. You could, you know, this is nonsense. I think that's not the point. I think the point is to make a nuisance of himself, to get on the front pages. You know, that's why he came over before. It's completely unnecessary. This time he's watching it remotely from his home, which makes a lot more sense. But he wanted to start it. It was the aperitif, say, and this was the main meal, so he could lay back a little bit. But they are repugnant, aren't they? You cannot stand how they can be so rude. And they're laughing. They were laughing at us, actually, rather than together. It was very phony with the basketball they went to yesterday.
Well, let's talk about that, actually, seeing that you've raised it. I mean, what was going on at the basketball? Because there was this very odd moment where Harry seemed to want to have a public kiss. In the past, Miss Meghan has always wanted this public display of affection. Instead,
blocked him.
Yeah, she turned away. She blocked him in a very similar way, actually, that Diana did very famously with Prince Charles at the polo in 1992.
Match, yes.
And so, you know, Meghan has long studied Diana. Do you think there was anything purposeful there?
No, I think she didn't want him to kiss her. I think those days are possibly far less of an interest for her. But she then did a huge laugh. You can see this laugh. She opens her mouth wide and she leans over. Her whole body's laughing. But, you know, somebody like me thinks that it's all phony, and she's doing that laughter to sort of tease him, but really she didn't want him near her. You know, how could she disappear when he was talking about the spare? Very difficult for him, you know, to talk to all the people who wanted to be interviewed. I don't feel sympathetic, but I think that's a very awkward thing for somebody to do. She should have been there with him. She should have helped him. She wasn't. So now she's just come back freshened. She's changed the colour of her hair. She looks a bit like an Egyptian queen, you know, one of these rigid things, no expression on her face. Goodness knows what's happened. And she's laughing. She's roaring.
What on earth could you mean, Angela? She only lives in Hollywood. But the thing that is so wrong about this is that, as you say, she scarpered over the past few months. She couldn't handle the embarrassment of Harry's autobiography, which was just awful. But why has she come back now, 10 days before the coronation, when all of the focus should be on Charles and Camilla? And this is so clearly planned, isn't it? Because we had the TED Talk video, we had, as you say, oh, we're being very happy-go-lucky and I'm dressing like a Californian at the basketball. This is an incredibly stage-managed event, and I believe it is because they want to cause ultimate distraction and disruption to the King's coronation?
Yes, of course. That's the only reason they need to do it, because they want to get in the papers. They want to be there and beat the royal family.
Well, Meghan's basically saying, if I can't be there, I'm still going to overshadow you. It's almost like she's trying to prove a point to them, isn't she? You thought you'd won because I'm not going to be there.
She's always got to win, Meghan. She's always got to win. And she goes on and on and on. She's very determined. But I think, actually, it's now turning against them because how popular they are has sunk down into the earth. And people now feel much more compatible to King Charles because they see how dignified he is and how kind he is to people and how hard he's working now. And Queen Camilla too. And they went up to turn the lights on for the Eurovision Song Contest, and they looked as happy as can be. And I think people respond to that. I think they're getting on with their own life.
Because you had Harry and Meghan at the basketball, you have William conducting a war memorial service. That is the difference between what these two brothers have chosen to do. And Harry claimed that he was going to go to California to continue a life of duty and service. Well, he hasn't done that. That's just a fact. But when it comes to the picture, the narrative he is trying to paint of Charles and Camilla...
Well, it's a disgrace.
Well, it's just not true, though, either, is it? Because this idea
but we know that
Charles and Camilla were in cahoots, were colluding with British newspaper groups is ludicrous. It just shows that he no longer believes the fact. He's gone into his own delusional world and he's convinced himself that things that are clearly not true are true.
He has to prove himself and he desperately can't do it. So he's trying harder and harder. You can see that, he wants to win. He wants to get one over William. That's why he's been so rude about him. But it's actually more irritating for him because they're not saying anything. They're not doing anything. They're getting on with their duties because that's more important. And I thought that people might just talk about the weather at the coronation with him, just to be very careful because otherwise he'd sell whatever they said to someone else. I don't think they'll talk to him at all now.
William won't.
No, William, I don't think any of them will. They'll if he's whizzing back after the service, he's not going to have a chance to talk to anyone. He's going to be sitting there on his own.
Well, the fact that he's even fallen out with Princess Eugenie
says
it all, because she used to be his biggest ally within the family.
And I think she told him lots of things that were going on, and now she doesn't. And her mother was very good because she had a few digs. She said she didn't mind not coming because she's... She didn't mind not coming because she's divorced and it's a state education. She said the thing is, it's important is to bring the family together and to support each other. That was a really big dig.
Yeah, so the point is, Harry and Meghan now no longer have one ally left in the royal family.
I doubt if they've got many allies in America, frankly.
Usually.
I think people can see through this more than ever now because it's just going on and on and on and they don't stop. And you think, why? You've got this fantastic house, you've got children. What are you doing? The negative is what keeps their lives together.
I know, and I think you might disagree with me on this, but I just feel like King Charles should rescind the invitation now.
It's too early, and he can't do that as a father. But I think after the ceremony's taken place, he doesn't want any more upsets, whatever it is. After, there will be all sorts of changes. He's just waiting for that, and I think he's quite right. I think people telling him how he should do things is a waste of time because the palace know what's going to happen and he knows what's going to happen. He just has to get through this and be anointed as our king, and then he can go off and there'll be lots of changes. He won't take this, particularly not him being so rude about his wife, who has done tremendously good work for the
But of course,
royals.
In the witness statement, harking back to the past, harking back to their affair in the late 80s and the early 90s.
Just trying to bring all the rubbish.
All of the negative
the
headlines to be in the public domain in the days before the coronation. Harry, we see what you're doing. This is obvious.
But that's why Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son, was so brilliant.
Absolutely.
And he said, you know, my mother has never had a thought to try and manipulate being queen.
But
she was with him
if you
because
believe
she loves
Harry's
him.
witness statement, this has been a big conspiracy, a big plan for the past 20 years. It's
But he's full
ridiculous.
of conspiracies. You know, there must have been thousands of conspiracies. And actually, it was only when he realised that there are this is when he met Meghan. You know, he was happy before. He didn't think they were all conspiracies.
Well, indeed. But we've seen what she does to her own family, so it's not a surprise that she's done it to Harry's family.
Yes.
Is it? Angela Levin, Prince Harry's biographer, will be speaking to you a lot over the next 10 days. Thank you so much.